I want to tell you about Pastor Jerome. Jerome is 47 years old. He has pastored a small but thriving congregation for 14 years. He preaches on generosity regularly, and he lives what he preaches. He tithes 10% of his income without fail. He gives to every special offering. He responds to every emergency appeal in his congregation. He has never once missed a tithe payment in over a decade of ministry. He also has $26,000 in credit card debt spread across 4 cards. His minimum payments alone consume $680 every month. His retirement account has $4,200 in it, the result of 3 years of modest contributions before the debt made continuing feel irresponsible. And every month, despite tithing faithfully, despite preaching faithfully, despite genuinely loving God with everything he has, he falls a little further behind. I asked Jerome once whether he had ever considered pausing his tithe temporarily to pay down the debt aggressively. He looked at me like I had suggested something heretical. He said, "The tithe is the first fruit. God gets his portion before anyone else." Jerome is not wrong about the principle. He is wrong about the sequence. And that sequence, tithe first, carry 22% debt second, is costing him $5,720 every year in interest charges alone. He is giving $5,500 to his church and handing $5,720 to 4 credit card companies. He is actually giving more to Visa than to God, and he has no idea. This is the tithing trap. It is not an argument against the tithe. It is an honest conversation about the sequence the church has been getting wrong for decades, and what it is actually costing the families who follow it. I am going to show you the maths, the scripture, and the sequence that changes everything. Let me show you how widespread this pattern is. Because Jerome is not an outlier, he is the median. Research consistently shows that the average practicing Christian household carries approximately $9,900 in credit card debt. At the current average interest rate of 22%, that debt costs approximately $2,178 per year in interest charges, $181 every single month leaving the household and going directly to a financial institution that has no interest whatsoever in their spiritual growth or their family's financial future. If that same household earns $55,000 per year and tithes faithfully at 10%, they are giving $5,500 to their church annually. They are also giving $2,178 to their credit card company annually. Together, those two outflows represent 13.9% of their gross income, more than they tithe, and nobody in their church has ever pointed that out. Ask yourself why. The answer reveals something important about what the church has been willing to say and what it has been avoiding. The church teaches giving. It almost never teaches the mathematics of what giving costs when high-interest debt runs alongside it. The tithe was never designed to coexist with consumer debt at 22% interest. The biblical instruction to give the first fruits was given to people who operated in a debt-free agricultural economy, not to households carrying 5-figure balances on revolving credit facilities, charging compound interest that the ancient world had no equivalent for. The financial environment has changed completely. The teaching has not kept pace with it. And the families paying the price are the ones sitting faithfully in church every Sunday, giving what they believe God requires while simultaneously bleeding financially through debt that nobody is helping them address. This is not a faith problem, it is an information problem, and information problems have solutions. In this video, I am going to show you 4 things. What the Bible actually says about the tithe, the full historical and textual context, and not the single-verse version most people have heard. The specific mathematical proof of why tithing before eliminating high-interest debt is a net financial loss every single month. What the biblical priority order actually looks like when you read the complete picture across multiple passages, and the exact sequence that allows you to honor your giving commitment, eliminate your debt, and arrive at a place where your generosity is genuinely cheerful rather than financially destructive. This video is going to challenge something you may have held your entire Christian life. I am asking you to stay with me through the argument before you react, because every word of what I am about to say has a scripture behind it. Let's start with what the tithe actually is. What most Christians have been taught about the tithe is a fraction of what the Bible actually says. The full picture changes the entire conversation. What the tithe actually is. The tithe is one of the most taught and least understood financial concepts in the entire Bible. Here is the full picture, not the single verse version that gets preached in most stewardship sermons. In the Old Testament, the tithe, the Hebrew word ma'aser, meaning a tenth, was not a single unified giving system. There were multiple distinct tithes described across the Torah, each with a different purpose, a different recipient, and a different application. The Levitical tithe in Numbers 18 supported the priesthood, the Levites who had no land inheritance and served the tabernacle full-time. This was essentially a tax that funded the religious infrastructure of ancient Israel. The festival tithe in Deuteronomy 14 funded communal celebration and worship gatherings. Families brought their tithe to Jerusalem to feast before God. And the welfare tithe, given every third year according to Deuteronomy 26, fed the poor, the widow, the orphan, and the foreign resident within the community. Combined, these tithes represented closer to 23% of an Israelite household's agricultural produce per year, not 10%. The tithe was also given from agricultural increase, specifically from the harvest of crops and the firstborn of flocks. It was not given from wages in the modern sense because wages as a primary income source did not exist in the ancient Israelite economy the way they exist today. And the system was designed for a specific economic structure that no longer exists anywhere on earth. The New Testament does not prescribe a specific percentage for Christian giving. The word tithe appears in the New Testament primarily in historical or critical contexts. Paul's instruction in 2 Corinthians 9:7 describes giving that is freely decided, proportional to means, and genuinely cheerful. None of that language implies a mandatory fixed percentage. Now here is the verse that reframes everything. The most quoted tithing passage in the modern church is Malachi 3:10. Bring the whole tithe into the storehouse, that there may be food in my house. Church leaders use this verse to establish the tithe as a non-negotiable obligation with a specific blessing attached. But read the full context of Malachi. It was written to post-exilic Israel, a specific people in a specific covenant relationship with God, operating under the Mosaic law system. The rebuke in Malachi 3 was directed at priests who were withholding the Levites' portion, robbing God by failing to maintain the religious system the tithe was designed to fund. This was an institutional failure, not an individual household giving failure. Using Malachi 3:10 to obligate a financially fragile family to tithe before paying off high-interest debt is a category error, applying a covenant instruction given to a specific people in a specific context to a completely different situation. Jerome has been faithfully responding to a teaching that was never designed for his circumstances. He deserves the full picture. The scripture context reframes the tithe entirely. But the mathematical case is even more direct, and once you see it, you cannot argue with it. Let me show you the numbers that the church has never put on a screen during a stewardship sermon. These are the numbers Jerome has never seen side by side. Jerome earns $55,000 per year. He tithes $5,500. He carries $26,000 in credit card debt at an average interest rate of 22%. His annual interest charge on that debt is $5,720. Every single year, Jerome gives $5,500 to his church and pays $5,720 to his credit card companies. He pays more in interest than he gives in tithe. His single largest annual financial outflow is not to God, it is to consumer debt. Now think about what that means over time. Jerome has been in this pattern for 7 years. In that 7 years, he has given approximately $38,500 to his church in tithes. He has also paid approximately $40,000 in credit card interest. He has given more to credit card companies than to God across 7 years of faithful tithing. And his debt has barely moved because the minimum payments keep him treading water. Here is the question that changes everything. What if Jerome maintained a modest giving level, say 3%, $1,650 per year, for 24 months while directing every other available dollar to aggressive debt elimination? At his income level, attacking the debt with $800 per month above his minimum payments, Jerome can be completely consumer debt-free in approximately 26 months. The moment he is debt-free, $680 per month that was going to minimum payments becomes available immediately. He can restore the full tithe and begin retirement contributions simultaneously, giving $5,500 per year with genuine cheerfulness rather than financial anxiety. Now compare the two paths over a 5-year period. Path 1. Continue tithing at 10% throughout. Jerome gives $27,500 to his church over 5 years. He pays approximately $22,000 in interest over the same period. His debt is reduced but not eliminated. His retirement account remains at $4,200 with no new contributions. Path 2. Reduce to 3% for 26 months, then restore the full tithe. Jerome gives approximately $7,150 to his church during the debt elimination phase, then $16,500 over the remaining 33 months at full tithe. Total giving over 5 years, approximately $23,650. He pays approximately $8,000 in interest during the debt elimination phase, and zero after. His debt is completely gone. His $680 monthly minimum payment becomes a $680 monthly retirement contribution. Path 2 gives his church $3,850 less over 5 years. Path 2 saves Jerome $14,000 in interest and generates a retirement account growing by $680 per month. That is the trade-off. And for Jerome at 47 with $4,200 in retirement savings, that trade-off changes the entire trajectory of his financial life. The rich rule over the poor, and the borrower is slave to the lender. Proverbs 22:7. Debt at 22% is financial slavery. Proverbs named it directly. Maintaining that slavery in the name of faithful giving is not what Scripture describes. It is a misapplication of generosity theology that costs families thousands of dollars annually, while the church celebrates their faithfulness without understanding the financial damage underneath it. The maths are clear, the Scripture context is clear, but the most important question requires the most courage. What does the right sequence actually look like for your specific situation right now? What 1 Timothy 5:8 actually means. There is one verse that reframes the entire tithing conversation, and it is almost never preached in the context of giving. Anyone who does not provide for their relatives, and especially for their own household, has denied the faith and is worse than an unbeliever. 1 Timothy 5:8. Paul wrote this in the context of caring for widows in the early church. But the broader principle it establishes is unmistakable and cannot be read narrowly without doing violence to the text. Provision for your household, the people God placed in your direct care, is a primary Christian obligation. It is not optional. It is not secondary to external giving. According to Paul, failure to provide for your household is not just financial carelessness, it is a denial of the faith itself. And that is extraordinarily strong language. And it establishes a clear priority order that the tithing conversation almost never acknowledges. An emergency fund is provision for your household. When your car breaks down at 11 p.m. with your children in the backseat, your emergency fund is the provision that keeps that moment from becoming a financial catastrophe. When your boiler fails in winter, when a medical bill arrives, when a month of reduced hours creates a cash flow gap, your emergency fund is 1 Timothy 5:8 made practical. A household without that provision is a household where every unexpected event becomes a new debt. Debt elimination is provision for your household. Consumer debt draining $680 per month from your family's resources is an active, ongoing attack on your household's financial stability. Every month that debt runs, the $680 leaves your household and goes to an institution that gives nothing back. Eliminating it is not just financially optimal, it is an act of provision for the people God placed in your care. It is 1 Timothy 5:8 expressed through a debt payoff plan. Now apply this directly to Jerome. Jerome's $26,000 in consumer debt is not just a financial burden he carries alongside his faith. It is a failure of household provision. the provision that 1 Timothy 5:8 places at the very top of the biblical priority order. Every month that debt runs unchallenged, Jerome is honoring his church's cultural expectation while violating a clearer and more direct biblical instruction. Not from moral failure, not from a lack of love for God, from incomplete information about what the Bible actually teaches about financial priority. But Jerome tithing 10% while carrying $26,000 in debt is not more faithful than Jerome providing for his household first. It is the right action in the wrong sequence. And the wrong sequence, sustained over years, produces the same fragile outcome regardless of how sincerely it is followed. This does not mean stop giving, it means give from the right position. Jerome giving 3% while eliminating his debt is a man providing for his household in obedience to 1 Timothy 5:8 while maintaining his giving habit. Jerome giving 10% while his household drowns in interest charges is a man honoring a cultural expectation while a clearer biblical instruction goes unanswered. That gap in teaching, Malachi 3:10 without 1 Timothy 5:8, is the gap that created Jerome's situation. Closing it is what this channel is for. Then understanding the sequence is everything. Now let me show you exactly what the right sequence looks like, and the specific steps for your situation this week. The tithing trap has one exit. It is the sequence. Here is exactly what it looks like, and it is more biblical than what most churches are currently teaching. If you are carrying high-interest consumer debt right now, you are not in a season of full tithing. You are in a season of provision. The first biblical priority according to 1 Timothy 5:8. Reduce your giving to a sustainable level that maintains your giving habit and your connection to your community. 2 to 3% of income is appropriate. Direct every available dollar to debt elimination in order of interest rate, from highest to lowest. This is called the debt avalanche, and it saves the most money mathematically. This is not abandoning your faith. This is applying 1 Timothy 5:8 directly to your household finances. You are providing for your household. The tithe will be restored. And when it is restored, it will be given with the genuine cheerfulness that 2 Corinthians 9:7 describes, rather than the financial desperation that currently characterizes it. If you are debt-free but have no emergency fund, build the emergency fund before restoring the full tithe. 3 months of household expenses is the target, approximately $14,400 for the average American family spending $4,800 per month. This is Joseph's grain storage applied to your modern household. Once the fund is in place, the tithe is restored from a position of genuine security rather than fragility. If you are debt-free with a funded emergency fund, this is your season of full generosity. Now give the tithe. Give beyond the tithe if your heart and your income support it. Give with the freedom of someone whose household is provisioned, whose debt is gone, and whose generosity is genuinely cheerful, exactly as 2 Corinthians 9:7 describes. This is the position the sequence was always building toward. The goal is not less generosity. The goal is generosity that is sustainable, growing, and genuinely free, rather than generosity that is financially destroying the very household it comes from. Your specific action based on where you are right now. One action. This week, not next month. If you are tithing while carrying high-interest debt, this week, have an honest reckoning with the 3 numbers. Total consumer debt. Total annual interest payments on that debt. Total annual tithe. Write all 3 on the same page. Then look at them simultaneously. For most people, this is the first time they have ever seen those 3 numbers side by side. Jerome's numbers, $26,000, $5,720, $5,500, make the problem undeniable. Your numbers will do the same. Then make 2 specific decisions. First, decide what reduced giving level you will maintain during the debt elimination season. 2 to 3% is the range. Second, identify your highest interest rate debt by name, balance, and rate. That debt is your target. Every extra dollar goes there until it is gone. If your consumer debt is under $10,000, at an aggressive extra payment of $400 per month above minimums, most households in this range are completely debt-free within 18 to 24 months. Go to any free online debt payoff calculator. Enter your balances, interest rates, and extra monthly payment. 8. Find your specific debt-free date. Write it in your calendar. That date is the day the full tithe is restored with joy rather than obligation. If your consumer debt is above $10,000, calculate the maximum extra monthly payment you can genuinely direct to debt elimination. Find your debt-free date at that payment level. Jerome at $26,000 with an extra $800 per month is debt-free in approximately 26 months. Your number may be different. Know it specifically. The difference between having a debt-free date and not having one is the difference between a plan and a wish. If you are debt-free and want to restore full giving, you are in the position the sequence was always building toward. Restore the tithe this month. Set it to automatic so it happens on payday. And then, for the first time, experience what 2 Corinthians 9:7 actually describes. Giving what you decided in your heart. Not reluctantly, not under compulsion. Freely, joyfully, from a household whose foundation is secure. I want to come back to Jerome. Jerome is 47 years old. He has been tithing faithfully for 14 years. He has $26,000 in consumer debt, $4,200 in retirement savings, and 7 years of interest payments that total more than he has ever given to his church. And he has been preaching the tithe to his congregation every year while living inside the financial trap it created for him. Jerome is not a hypocrite. He is not careless. He is a faithful man who was never given the full picture. He was given Malachi 3:10. Nobody gave him 1 Timothy 5:8 in the same sermon. He was given the principle of the first fruit. Nobody showed him the mathematics of what first fruit costs when 22% debt runs alongside it for 14 years. The sequence changes everything for Jerome. 26 months of provision first giving. Debt eliminated completely. Emergency fund built. Tithe restored from a position of genuine freedom. Retirement contributions finally starting at 49 with 16 years still ahead of him. The same generosity, finally from a foundation that makes it sustainable, joyful, and genuinely free. The tithe is a beautiful principle. The giving it describes, freely decided, cheerfully given, from genuine overflow, is one of the most powerful financial and spiritual disciplines a Christian household can practice. But it was never designed to coexist with financial slavery. And debt at 22% is financial slavery. Proverbs named it directly, without apology, as the borrower being slave to the lender. If this video finally said what someone in your life has needed to hear, the Jerome in your world who tithes faithfully and falls further behind every month, please send it to them today. Not as a challenge, as a gift. Drop a comment and tell me, has the tithing before debt sequence cost you financially? What did you do about it? I read every single one. You cannot give freely from a position of financial slavery. Break the chains first. Then give with the joy that was always the point.